All right, welcome back to the Brian Rush Show. Thanks so much for checking us out today on this Thursday. And, of course, the big election that is coming up. Obviously, November is the big election. August, though, is another big election that we got to pay attention to because there is a primary that is happening on August 18th. Of course, the early voting starts a little bit before that. We have a couple of big elections that we have to look into, and one of those being the Florida Congressional District number 2. There are 8, yes, count them, 8 Republican candidates that are in that right now, and I think there's like 4 Democrats, but they don't really matter. One of those candidates that we want to learn a little bit and get to know who they are a little, and that is Austin Rogers. Sometimes I keep wanting to say like Austin Powers. Do you get that often? Because I don't know why I keep messing up your name.
I do get that some. My soccer coach growing up used to call me Austin Powers. He had a British accent. He'd always Austin Powers, the international man of mystery. So
that's actually kind of funny. That is funny. Anyhow, Austin Rogers is the name. You are running for the Florida Congressional District number 2, and I want to find out a little bit about you. I've had the opportunity to actually meet you in person, and I got to say this. You seem like a really nice guy, which is not something that you normally get from most politicians. I've met just about all of the ones that are running, except for a couple of handfuls who, quite honestly, don't really matter in this race, but I'm not going to say that out loud. And it seems like pretty much you and a couple of others are pretty decent, down-to-earth people. But I want to learn more about you and who Austin Rogers is. So I want to open the floor to you. Who are you and why the heck are you running? What's going on?
Yeah, so who I am, I'm born and raised in Panama City, so love, the average thing that you love here, which is hunting, fishing, the outdoors. Those are near and dear to me. I'm teaching my kids how to hunt and fish, which is fun. So that's a little bit about who I am, why I'm running. There's a preacher who described vocation as the sweet spot where your deep joy meets the world's deep need. And for me, representing my hometown, representing people I was born and raised with, is that sweet spot. I have had no greater joy in my career than serving the Panhandle, and I think there's a deep need for strong conservative leadership right now.
Now, awesome. Now, this is a very obvious point when it comes to looking at you as a candidate, and boy, you're young. How old are you?
35.
Okay, that's not too bad. I mean,
yeah.
AOC was a little younger than that, so I mean, that's good.
Yeah, that's right. I am older than most of the folks who wrote our Constitution and most of the people who founded our country. And I'm about J.D. Vance's age when he became a senator. So certainly think my age is not a rate limiting step for me.
Yeah, so. And I agree because, age is really kind of nothing but a number. And, there are some people that are at your age or a little bit younger that are actually really smart, very good, very talented people. And then there's people your age and even my age that are dumb as a box of rocks. So sometimes, the age really doesn't matter all that much. But let's get a little bit about your background, help qualify you a little bit. What have you done that has qualified you to be ready to do this role? Because this is a big role. I mean, to take on the Florida CD2. What have you done to set you up for this?
Yeah, going back to the age point a little bit and then answering your question, sat down with Jacob Ogles, who's a Florida politics reporter. We had a great interview, and he concluded after that I'm the youngest person in the race, but have the most relevant experience. And, I have served on the cutting edge, on the front lines of the conservative movement. So I put pen to paper on the One Big Beautiful Bill. I've conducted hearings, investigations. I'm the only person in this race that has federal experience. So really the only person who wouldn't need training wheels to get the job done and who could hit the ground running. Most recently served as Senator Rick Scott's general counsel, but before that, I was chief counsel on the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Okay, so you definitely got a little bit of DC experience, so it's not going to be a complete shock when you get there and go, what the heck did I get myself into?
Because I know where the bathrooms are. I know who the other
That's important. As long as you know where the bathrooms are, because I think there's a few members up there that have forgotten where they are.
Yeah.
But either way, let's talk a little bit about the issues that are important, because obviously there's a lot of things that are going on. I mean, you and your website, which you can check out, Rogers 4, and that is the letter 4, Florida.com. You got a lot of issues that are listed there. Some of them are very standard, conservative issues. I mean, obviously, Second Amendment, you don't run as a conservative and not be like, I'm for the Second Amendment, because otherwise that's one of those, flick, you're gone already. But some of the things I really want to hit on are the things that are really, truly important that hit the everyday American. And that is independents, Republicans, conservatives, Democrats, progressives, everybody. And that things like economy and jobs. And we've seen what the left has said about the economy, how horrible it is and how jobs are bad and everything else. But what are some of your thoughts on the state of the economy now and what you want to do to improve it and make it even better?
Yeah, I think Biden absolutely broke the economy. I
Mm.
think inflation was soaring under him. Jobs are in a disastrous state. President Trump is turning things around, but there's a ton of work to do still. Every day on the campaign trail, when I'm talking to folks across the district, they're having a hard time paying for groceries. They're having a hard time paying for gas. They're having a hard time just sustaining their life. And so, the jobs, the economy, affordability, that is pillar one of our campaign platform. And that's something that I'd like to tackle. I think there are reasonable ways of doing that and ways that are high yield, just simple low hanging fruit things. Um, that would include, cutting taxes. That would include cutting red tape. That would include rethinking and being thoughtful about entitlements. And those are all things that I'd love to tackle on day one.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as it is right now, the entitlements or the social programs that we have in this country, that's about 50% of our U.S. budget, which if more people realized how much money we spent on social programs, they would probably lose it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%. So it's something that we have to be thoughtful about. We are dancing on the Titanic. If we don't right the ship soon, we are on a collision course and going to be in a disastrous state. So, I don't want to go up there and be the most popular one, doling out cash to everyone and just
Hmm.
continuing the bipartisan spending fiasco that we've been on. I want to really tighten the belt and get our country on the right track again.
Yeah, I mean, to a lot of degrees, I'm okay with our congressman saying, yeah, no, we can't get money for that project because we don't have it. I
Yeah.
mean, I want to see that a little bit more often and not just, oh yes, absolutely, kiss your butt. We don't want a lot of that. Austin, one of the other big things that we hear, and obviously you kind of touched a little bit on it with the economy and jobs, and that is the affordability thing. About a year ago or so, before all the elections started getting going, I said here on this show, is like, you watch, affordability is going to be the buzzword. And it is. It's become a buzzword that the Democrats use to attack. Republicans have finally come out and gone, oh yeah, we got to do something about affordability. But there is actually a reality to the affordability thing. And what are some of your thoughts and ideas on how to make things, or at least get things in the affordable way? I mean, you hit on a couple of things, but what are some of your thoughts on that particular topic?
Yeah, President Trump is taking certain actions that are moving the needle in terms of affordability. You look at what he did with Walmart just recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you look at what he's done with Trump RX, the price of prescription drugs. But really, at bottom, I think getting the government out of the way of the American people is what's going to make life more affordable. We are overregulated more than ever. Neil Gorsuch wrote a thoughtful book about this, I think called Overregulated. But the bottom line is, every nook and cranny of your life is surrounded by 100 different regulations. That leads to higher costs. That leads to life being less affordable. There are 100 different agencies overlapping with jurisdiction that are regulating every nook and cranny of whether it's building a home, whether it's the food that you put on your table, whether it's the drugs you buy. I want to get the government out of our wallets, out of our backyards, and I think that's a significant way of cutting the cost of living here.
Yeah, absolutely. Data centers. Let's talk about that. Data centers and AI, because obviously data centers across the country, and especially right here in CD2, has been a hot button topic. We've seen some of the counties already in this district have voted that we are not going to allow data centers. And then there is the AI issue, which some things are good, some things are not good. But what is your stance on the whole data center and AI topic?
Yeah, I think there's a needle to be thread here when it comes to AI. I don't want our AI being written on Chinese code, and we are in an arms race with China when it comes to AI. So we have to outpace China. Bottom line, we have to beat our number one adversary. That being said, I have sat with mothers of children who have taken their life because they developed a relationship with a chatbot in AI and fell down a deep, dark path and fell into a depression. So we also need to make sure we're protecting American jobs. We need to make sure we're protecting American children, that we're protecting people online. Um, this is an issue that I spearheaded in Congress. So, as chief counsel on the Senate Judiciary Committee and as Senator Rick Scott's general counsel, I put pen to paper on dozens of AI bills, a lot of which had legs and have staying power. So, um, that is a massive issue in terms of data centers. I think it needs to be a conversation with the community. Most communities I'm hearing from in North Florida don't want them in their backyard. And so government elected officials need to be listening to their citizens. If people don't want them there, then they shouldn't be there.
Yeah, and obviously, and this point has been made several times when it comes to talking about data centers in Florida, that they get really hot and require a lot of air conditioning. This might not be the best place to put something that gets really hot.
That's right.
Do something like some of the
Yeah.
other countries where they're putting them down in caves and stuff
Yeah.
like that, or up north in an
Or
unpopulated,
under
cool
the
area.
sea, even.
Yeah,
There are some places where they're putting them literally in the water, which
yeah,
is pretty wild.
yeah. It is kind of
But
crazy.
yeah, big issue. They suck up a lot of resources. They're a
Mhm.
nuisance. They can be pretty obnoxious. The other big thing for me is they've been pitched positively by saying that they create jobs.
Mm.
That's fine, but they create short-term construction jobs. We need jobs that have long-term staying power in these communities and that can employ people for generations to come.
Yeah, absolutely, and that kind of brings up another point when you talk about jobs, and also affordability, because a lot of people don't realize that when it comes to like housing, in addition to all of the regulations that are being out there, one of the other problems is actually material, and that requires manufacturing here in America. And Donald Trump has done a pretty good job in Trump 1.0 and in 2.0 at bringing more manufacturing back here to this country, but it's also something that's not an overnight thing. But what are some of your thoughts on kind of getting the manufacturing and the made in the USA a little bit more fast forwarded and built up a little bit faster? What are your thoughts on that?
I really love the push that he's making and the impulse behind that push. If you look at no offense, but if you look at probably half the stuff in your room, if I look at half the stuff in my room, there's some sort of
Oh
made
yeah,
in China label slapped on it. It's a massive problem. You think about drug supply chains, you think about what COVID exposed in terms of our supply chains, and China is sourcing so much of what we consume as Americans. I want to see more stuff made in the USA. As you said, President Trump is um, he has gone miles in making that a reality. I think there are short-term growing pains associated with that. Costs might be slightly higher. Obviously, the cost of fuel is a little bit higher right now, which creates everything. It causes everything to be a little bit more expensive. But I like the direction we're headed in, and I think we are starting to onshore a lot of jobs.
yeah, that's good. Let's talk about border security and immigration, because obviously this is another issue, and one of the things that has been brought up by a lot of the manufacturing industries, farming industries, and other industries is that I know that some of these people are here illegally, but we kind of need some of the workers. But we've also had an immigration issue that has caused crime, has been a drain on a lot of the systems, a lot of the financial aspects. But what are some of your thoughts when it comes to the border security and where we need to move forward? Even though Trump has made great strides, but what's next?
Yeah, I think Trump prioritized in the first instance getting criminal illegal aliens out of our country. He's prioritizing the lowest of the low, the gang members, the terrorists. I think we need to continue chipping away at that, and we need to continue rooting that out of our communities. We know now that President Biden and Kamala Harris allowed tens of millions of people to pour across our border, and that a lot of those people did not have our best interests in mind and were actually acting in an adverse way to American interests. We need to continue rooting those people out. President Trump stopped the bleeding, but I'm worried about what might happen if a leftist or if another Democrat gets back in power and whether they'll just open the border back wide open. And so we need to make sure that we're coming up with some reasonable legislation and laws that will address that and sort of tie the hands of a future administration. Um, I think you've identified certain issues pertaining to labor. I talked to a lot of folks in the hospitality industry, farmers, et cetera. And so, visa programs, things like that, that might encourage lawful immigration is good. But I'm never going to support anything that grants mass amnesty. And I'm never going to support anything that is allowing criminal illegal aliens into our borders.
Good. That's a good stance to be on. I think most Americans will agree with you when it comes to that. Let's talk about another issue that's starting to form a lot here in this country. And obviously, we've all known about the squad, the AOCs, the Ilhan Omars, and all of them. They've been a problem since date number one. But one of the things that we're starting to see, and we saw this just a week ago with the primary that happened in New York City or in the New York State, where we saw a Democrat that was an anti-Donald Trump Democrat who was part of the impeachment, that was anti-everything Trump, and you would think would be a hero in the Democrat Party, but he lost his seat to essentially a communist. They want to call themselves a socialist, but let's be honest, let's call an apple, and they're communists. This is something that we're seeing a lot more happen in the Democrat Party. Obviously, there's the Graham Plattner situation with the Senate up in Maine, which hopefully the Democrats are coming to their senses on that, and that's not going to happen, and he's going to go away. But we're seeing a lot of people with that mentality rising in the Democrat Party, and it's kind of almost a socialist takeover of the Democrat Party, which can be a very dangerous thing. What are some of your thoughts on how we get a hold of that and slow it down or get rid of it as in general?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the left is getting farther left, and that's a massive problem. You don't have to go far and look beyond Cuba to realize it's a disaster when you implement socialism in real practice and in real power. So you are seeing more of that. You're seeing a rise of democratic socialism. A lot of folks getting elected. It is a massive problem, and would also identify that the only people who are raising money in the Democratic Party right now are those on the far left. They're the only people who are actually contributing to their financial crisis that they're undergoing right now. So it's a massive issue. Socialism doesn't work. It has never worked any time that it's been put into place. And yet you find these people buying into this quixotic idea that, oh, well, maybe it's just not the right place, not the right time. It never works anywhere it is. And it's because it roots God out of communities. It roots responsibility out of communities. And it says the government can take care of everything. And, just trust the experts, trust the angels in government. That has never worked and it never will work. So, I'd say the rise of socialism in America in particular and in public office is alarming. Uh, I'm hoping that this is a canary in the coal mines and that we wake up and we start electing people with some sense.
Yeah.
Even if that means a centrist Democrat, we can't be electing far left socialists like we are in New York and elsewhere.
Yeah, I miss the centrist Democrats. I mean, those were the good days when you'd had them and you could have a conversation and disagree with each other, and it's not one of those, I hope you die on your way home from work, which is like what we get nowadays. The level of hatred is really unreal. Let's talk about education. Oh,
Sure.
Go ahead. I'll cut you off.
I was going to say, I never thought I'd say it either, but I also miss the centrist Democrats.
Yeah.
I think our country is more divided now than ever. And I think when folks get that far to the left and they're literally on the cusp of socialism, communism, Marxism, that creates just such a toxic environment where we feel like as conservatives, we have to fight back. There's no other option.
Mm-hmm.
And, it ruins public discourse. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Education. Obviously, Donald Trump from the get-go. And one of the things I love about Donald Trump that a lot of people don't quite understand is the man is way more brilliant on the world stage knowledge and more brilliant when it comes to, things like the British Empire and the control that they still have over this country, which people don't realize. So, I mean, there's things that he's doing with the quote unquote deep state or the one world order of people that is brilliant. And it's like he's nitpicking it little by little, and education was kind of one of those. Obviously, he's getting rid of the National Federal Education Department. What are some of your thoughts on what we need to do on education? Do we need to get rid of this thing? If we do, how do we address it? What are your thoughts on education?
Yeah, I'd definitely be in favor of getting rid of the Department of Education. I think education's best left up to the states. Let them compete with each other, give parents choices. In my mind, the more choice, the more school choice, the better. The more micro schools we're seeing, the better. The more homeschooling, the better. Uh, we are over reliant on the state and especially the federal government to form our children, and that is a massive problem. Children used to be formed, in churches and homes and in schoolrooms. Now they're formed by woke agenda, and that is a top-down thing that started with Department of Education, and that's percolated throughout communities. So I would be in radical agreement that we should get rid of the Department of Education. I think the sooner the better.
Yeah, absolutely. What about funding for education? Because that's one of the things that, I mean, Republicans really not jumping on that. More the Democrats and independents kind of harp on the fact that, oh, what about funding? What are your thoughts on federal funding still for education on the state level and letting the states distribute?
I think as a matter of first principles in government, the more that is left to the states and local governments, the better. I think people and their communities are best situated to um, govern their lives rather than the federal government, rather than the Leviathan. And so I would love to see more responsibilities taken from the states. I'm not saying no funding ever from the federal government, but I seriously think we need to be rethinking the cooperation, the relationship between the federal government and the states, especially when it comes to education. I'd love to see the states taking more responsibility. Here in the state of Florida, we are doing that. School choice is we are a city on the hill when it comes to school choice. And we need to keep pioneering these ideas and these principles. And I'll just say the proof's been in the pudding. Our results are speaking for themselves, and education in the state of Florida is becoming top notch. So, hopefully that's responsive to your question.
Yeah, I think it is. Let's also kind of hit still on an education age range. And this is something that I bring up all the time when it comes to, the upcoming voters. And I've harped on it with the Republican Party, including the RNC, and they just right past them. Gen Z is a very important election block. And I don't think people realize how important that is. I mean, you have the baby boomers that are dying off on a daily basis. You have us Gen Xers, which we're not the biggest generation, so it's not like we're going to be really filling that gap. But the gap that is being filled is going to be done by Gen Z. And with you being the youngest candidate that's in this, and the Republican Party as a whole really truly not embracing the younger generation. Donald Trump has done a good job at it, but the party as a whole has not. What are some of your thoughts on getting more of the younger people, especially in this district, involved in politics and understanding, and also listening to them a little bit? Because not all of them are these crazy whacked out Gen Zers that you think. There's actually a larger portion that's more conservative, but they're also feeling I'm not being listened to. So what are your thoughts on the younger generation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the younger generation has to take the mantle. Um, young people, college students, they've always been inspirational just by nature. They've always been, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You look at TPUSA, we need to take a lot of that energy and we need to funnel it and start a movement here.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, traditionally, conservatives have been associated with a bunch of old curmudgeonly white dudes.
Yeah.
And we don't need that to be what our party is. We need young people taking these ideas that have persisted throughout time and space and carrying the mantle forward on them. These ideas, they're rooted in biblical truths, they're rooted in godly truths, they're rooted in persistent principles. And it doesn't matter if you're young, you're old, you're black, you're white, who you are, these truths are going to stand the test of time. And so, I'm reminded of recently I was reading a book by G.K. Chesterton, and he talked about what it meant to be conservative. And he said, a true conservative has to be willing to, if you, he describes it in terms of, if you have a white post and you want to keep it white, you have to constantly be painting it white. You can't just let it sit there. And so like people think of conservatives, they think of the conservative movement as, just a bunch of old people letting these ideas sit there. In reality, we need fresh paint. In
Mhm.
reality, we need fresh ideas. We need fresh perspectives that are coming in and taking these tried and true principles and applying them in new circumstances, applying them to issues that you mentioned, like AI, applying them to cryptocurrencies, all sorts of issues that our day and age faces. So uh, we are certainly trying to funnel that energy in our campaign. I am not Gen Z, but we employ some Gen Z folks, and they're
Mhm.
top notch. They're as smart as they come, and they're about as conservative as they come too.
Yeah, that's awesome because it is a generation that we can't forget about them because otherwise the Democrats will snag them without a doubt. We're talking to Austin Rogers again. His website for you to follow more with him is Rogers for Florida, and that's the word for .com. So go there and check that out. I want to give you the opportunity because obviously we've covered a bunch of topics, but what else is on your mind and why you should be elected? What are some of the other things that you want to see done? Should you get this honor to serve Florida?
Yeah. So on the campaign trail, we talk a lot about jobs in the economy. You and I have touched on that. We talk a lot about public safety in the military. Those are things that I have eat, slept, breathed throughout my life. Just being a military brat, growing up on base housing out at Tyndall Air Force Base. But on the Senate Judiciary Committee, I had essentially the broadest portfolio in Congress, and I addressed everything from AI to college sports to intellectual property. A lot of the issues that this nation faces, the most hot button, the most important issues this nation faces. I'm the only person in this race who has the federal experience working on these issues, who's conducted hearings and investigations into these problems that our nation faces, and who would be able to hit the ground running. Um, a lot of people think of legislation, they think of serving as a member of Congress like Schoolhouse Rock, and it's really more complicated. There's a committee process, there's a floor process. It's a dizzyingly complex system, and I actually want to simplify it in 100 different ways. But you could be Albert Einstein; it would take you a long time to know and learn that system. I've mastered that system and would be able to show up and execute and deliver results on day one. So I think that's what sets me apart. And in terms of issues, as I said, broadest portfolio in Congress. Something that I know is going to sound silly, but that I'd love to address is making college sports great again. So, big college football fan, big college basketball fan. College sports are the one thing in the United States that still unite people, whether they're
Mm-hmm.
a Democrat, whether they're Republican, whether they're black, white, whatever their background is, young, old. And so, we don't have the college sports that I grew up with. I grew up watching Florida State and Bama and all these schools and watching people play with their hearts. This day and age, folks are in it for a buck, and there's a transfer portal. It's made the entire system the wild, wild west, and it's made it, I think, less fun and entertaining.
Yeah.
So I'd love to make college sports great again, and there's some very simple legislative fixes to make that happen.
Very, very cool. Let's see what else you got that you want to see happen.
I think really a culture shift is what I'd love to see happen.
Mm-hmm.
You see it on the right and you see it on the left. There is just bitterness. There are people on the right who hate each other and or who hate the left, people on the left who hate the right. You look at Graham Plattner and his fall from power, if you want to describe it that
Fall
way.
from grace, at
And I think
least.
yeah, fall from grace. Yeah, not from power. I think a lot of what explains Democrats circling the wagons around, just to be frank, a dirtbag, is the fact that they hate the right so much. And I think what we need in Congress is we need a paradigm shift. We need a culture change where we don't hate each other. We love this country,
Mm-hmm.
and we allow the principles that unite this country. We allow our love for this country to actually allow us to get some stuff done. Um, yeah, I think there is a culture of finger pointing and sort of the Spider-Man meme. And I'd love for people to take ownership and responsibility. I'm a father of three, and I look at the direction of our country, and I think my children deserve the country of my grandparents, which is a country of patriotism. There are so many people this day and age who hate their country and who are embarrassed to be Americans. This is the greatest country on earth, and people should be proud to be Americans. Um, you know, celebrating the 250th here in the Panhandle, everyone's proud and
Mm.
everyone is, it was an incredible atmosphere this past 4th of July. But in places like New York, California, people are ashamed to be Americans, and we need to make it, great to be American. Again, we need a culture shift where people are once again proud to be American.
Yeah, that would probably be the most monumental task to be able to achieve is to get people to be a little bit united, and I think it does start with the leadership. When you start getting politicians that start getting along a little bit better and stop all of the infighting and the negativity, which there has become way too much of it. But something else
Yeah.
that I want to throw at you, and I'm going to throw this at you, and you can take it and run with it. I'll even I don't care who takes credit for it. You can just whisper into my ear later on and go, "You're right." But we do hear from time to time, "Oh, we need term limits," and I've actually kind of been against term limits, as far as just the regular congressional seats or the Senate seats or any of that stuff, because I think that the power of term limits should remain with us, the people, where, if I elect you up to Congress and you do a craptastic job, I want to be the one to say, "No, you really sucked." Or if you've been so amazing, I want you there for another term and another term and another term. That should be, as me, the voter, I think that should be my decision. But here's where I think the problem is when it comes to a longevity in Washington, D.C., and that is leadership. I would love to see, more than anything, a term limit on leadership, meaning you can only sit in those leadership roles for so long, and that's it. Get out the way, move, let somebody else go. There's 500 and something people between the two chambers, and there's a lot of people there that I think would love to have that opportunity to be in that that leadership role. But you can't get in it because you get the same old cronies that, whether they're the speaker or the minority leader or the majority leader or whatever it might be. What are your thoughts on putting just and I know this is almost a dangerous thing, because then the leadership will look at you and go, "You want to do what?" But putting a term limit on them so that we do get more fresh ideas. And you don't even have to say anything. Just go, "That's a good idea, Brian. We'll think about it." And then, like, down the road, implement it, because I know that's almost a dangerous road, because leadership does not want to be told that they should go away. But what are your thoughts?
That's an interesting idea, Brian.
Yeah.
I'll have to noodle on. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. What
No,
I'll
hey,
say
that's the most
is that
political answer that you can give, because
I
leadership,
know,
I know
right?
how
Yeah.
it'll work.
No, I'll give you a real take on it. So, all my colleagues in this race and around the country are saying term limits, term limits, term limits.
Hmm.
I'm in favor of term limits, to be clear, but I think we have to be thoughtful about term limits.
Yeah.
In reality, it is a crazy complex system that we're running to enter into. It's a Byzantine system. It is in so many ways outdated. It takes a long time to learn. If you put term limits in place, we've seen in a lot of places, staff start running the show,
Yep.
and they're no longer calling the shots. Or sorry, members are no longer calling the shots. Staff members are calling the shots. We
Exactly.
can't allow that to happen. So I'm fine with term limits. I actually am in favor of them. I've signed a pledge to support term limits, but there would have to be a thoughtful approach to it, so that we're ensuring that we're not just having this deep state reality that we have in the second branch of government, the executive branch, where you have all of these unelected bureaucrats running the show.
Hmm.
We don't want that in the first branch. We don't want that in Congress. And so I'm fine with term limits. We need to come up with creative solutions to implement those term limits. And you've identified one. I think there are
Yeah.
several other creative solutions that I would identify. Um, but at the end of the day, I don't want a bunch of unelected teenagers running the show in Congress. I
Mm.
want our accountable elected officials running the show. It used to be the case that a farmer would go and serve in Congress for 8 years, and that would be all they'd want to do, and they did their service to their community, and they came back. We need to come back to those days. A lot of that was self-imposed. You had men of virtue and integrity who didn't want to go be lifelong politicians. I can't
Right.
think of anything more miserable than being a lifelong politician, but for a lot of people, that power is seductive.
Yeah.
And so, I'm in favor of term limits. I think we need to be thoughtful and creative about how we implement them. You've identified one way, you know, I've identified others and my team has identified others, but I totally agree that we need to come up with some creative solutions for this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you also do recognize that danger of the staff, which staff is great. But the staff knows not only where the bathrooms are, where the office supplies are, they also know where the bodies are because they helped dig the hole and put them in there. And you don't want them to be running things because then you do create a bureaucracy state where the members have to go to the staff to ask them for permission or ask them for knowledge. So you don't want to go too far with that. Austin, how can people contribute to you, learn more about you, where you're going to be? Give us a quick little last punch there about your campaign.
Yeah. So you identified our website a few times. I'm grateful for that. My team tells me I don't say it enough. So rogersforflorida.com. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on X. We're all over. We're on Truth. So follow us, like our stuff. It's really helpful. If you want a yard sign, we're happy to get that to you. All you have to do is go on our website and request one. But we have a ton of momentum right now, and we are riding the wave big time. The momentum across the district is huge, and we'd love for everyone who's tuning in to be a part of that.
Awesome. Austin Rogers. Again, the website is Florida.com. Don't confuse it with the number 4. You'll probably get something completely different. The election is going to be, the primary election is August 18th. Of course, don't forget November 3rd. You still have to get out there and vote no matter what happens. So that way we don't get a Democrat. But good luck with that, Austin. And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate your time.